Good evening, everyone!
Good evening!
I know you can be better than that. It's the last 2018. Good evening, everyone!
Good evening!
And welcome to a wonderful, final Trojan public speaking event on this wonderful Wednesday. Now, who's ready for Christmas? Yes. Is everyone ready for Christmas?
No. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, listen, tonight you're gonna be ready for Christmas because we have a lot of presents, involved in speeches, involved in people coming up on the stage, and most of all, involved in you all giving yourselves a round of applause for the wonderful contribution you've all put in this club this year. My name is Matthew Thomas Forrester. As many of you know, I don't think we have any guests involved in the stage right now. So I'm your Sergeant at Arms, past guests. I'm your Sergeant at Arms, and I'll be declaring some numerous house rules that we have. So towards the left and the right, we have fire exits in case a fire goes down. Never has in the last 15 years, but you never know, today we're doing it first. We have a camera which will be filmed anyone that comes on stage, so everyone will be able to see themselves on YouTube once that's put out there. Also, everyone who's coming up to the stage, please come forward in the front. Can everyone ensure all mobile phones are turned off or put to silent to avoid any disruptions? And last but not least, if anyone has any questions, please come up to the front right here, and you'll be able to find me, and I'll be able to help you. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we shall proceed into the last meeting of 2018. To do that, I think it's only right that we call the one person who's going to kick us off on the right page. Please, put your hands together for our Commander-in-Chief, our President, Mr. David Horn!
The last meeting of 2018, it's actually kind of mind-blowing to think that it was 6 months ago that we elected the new committee. And gosh, where's the time gone? But here we are, it's 13 days until Christmas, and hopefully everybody's starting to wind down a little bit. However, I'm going to continue on my theme of commitment and human achievement, in the hopes that those of you who were down in camera land, who aren't here tonight, are watching, because it's the same message. Please come and show up. I'm ever so grateful for the dozen people that are here tonight. You're what make our club work. And I know it's a quiet one because it's just before Christmas, and I know quite a few people have Christmas parties on this evening, and that's understandable. But we have a lot of members who, I mean, I'm grateful for them for paying their membership dues, but come along and get something from it. You know, we'll keep taking your money, it's not a problem. It's kind of like those people who sign up for the gym and don't bother to come. So commit. Get fit. Get fighting fit. Get communications fit. Get leadership fit. Come along and have fun with all of your friends here in the safest and friendliest club in London. And that's my final message. I will pick up again in the new year on commitment and human achievement. But for now, I'm going to hand over to our Toastmaster for the evening, Sumit Singh.
Dear Trojans, welcome to this momentous day of Trojans meeting. This is one of the most momentous days in UK, probably, for different reasons. Now, some of you might be thinking, what's happening with the Brexit? Some of you might be thinking, what's happening with Theresa May today? But that's irrelevant. Because what's going to happen is going to happen, and you being here is going to make a difference in your life. I was quite disgusted and disappointed with all the politics going around, and I just really wanted to concentrate on something which is more constructive, which is something more learning for me. So that's why I've showed up today and taken up this role for the Toastmaster. Now, this is the Christmas time, and as Matthew has mentioned, this is the last meeting before Christmas, or probably in this year. So we would be having a lot of Christmas gifts for everyone. And what are these Christmas gifts? These would be the speeches given by our prepared speech participants which would be giving us the gift to understand what it takes to give a very well prepared speech. What are the nuances of that speech that we should be incorporating within ourselves, even if we are not giving that speech? How about the evaluators? Evaluators also give us a gift. Not just evaluating the person in front of them, but they also give us this gift of improving ourselves by giving a evaluation in a third person. So that's the gift we are going to take for us. And within this Christmas celebrations, as I can put it, there are many members who would be helping me carry out this evening. And the first member would be Jane, who would be telling a bit more about the role that she's doing of a timekeeper. Jane, everyone.
Hi everybody, my name is Jane. Merry Christmas everybody. So yes, as I said, I'm a timekeeper, and it's my job to ensure that everybody speaks to time as they go on too long so we can get over to the wine and supplies. I do that with the lamp at the back, so just if I remember this rightly, while the lamp is showing white, that means you can continue speaking. When it turns to green, thank you very much, there's a visual aid going on there. When it turns to green, that means that you've reached the minimum time, so you can stop at any point after that. When it turns to amber, it means that you've got to start making preparations to come to a close. And when it turns to red, it means your time is up. And 30 seconds after that, I will bang the gavel. Oh, ring the bell, that's much more polite. And you definitely have to hold at that point. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
And the second official within this Christmas celebration would be a role of a grammarian, and it would be Adrian Lane,
An impromptu table topic speech already this evening. Your word tonight of the day is going to be ingratiate. It's a verb, and it means to bring oneself into favour with someone or please them. So you can ingratiate yourself with me by using that word when you go up onto the stage. Or you can ingratiate yourself with Toastmasters by turning up to the evening. So the word of the day is ingratiate. My main role as well is to look at good use of English, poor use of English, any alliterations, similes, metaphors, whatever they mean, but just generally picking up on what everybody says. Mr. Toastmaster.
So getting on to the first Christmas gift for this evening, I'm going to ask the first evaluator, Matthew Thomas Forrester, who is evaluating Jayesh, to stand up and give a bit of details about Jayesh's speech. Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Jayesh will be doing project number 4 from the Competent Communicator Manual, How to Say It. The objectives for Jayesh's speech is to select the right words and test sentence structure to communicate your ideas clearly, accurately, and vividly. Use rhetorical devices to enhance and emphasize ideas. Eliminate jargon and unnecessary words. Use correct grammar. The time Jayesh has is 5 to 7 minutes.
So with the speech entitled The Poet, I would like to call upon Jayesh to the stage, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, your guests today. I'll start with a poem from Federico García Lorca. And this was a poem he wrote in 1929 in New York. Then I realized I had been murdered.
they looked for me in cafes, cemeteries, and churches. They opened the wine casks and wardrobes. They ravaged 3 skeletons to gorge out the gold out of their teeth. But they did not find me. No. They never found me? No, they never found me. This was in 1929, and 7 years ago, Federico García Lorca was executed by a firing squad in Andalusia. And his body was thrown into a pit, probably, and no one's ever found his body. It was very prophetic when he said those words. But it's kind of a theme that he had in a lot of his poetry and dramas that he wrote. Leonard Cohen put it very succinctly when he said he was very grateful for García Lorca because he gave Leonard Cohen permission to find his voice. But in that instruction, he said to never lament casually. García says, if one is to express the inevitable defeat, it must be done in the strict confines of dignity and beauty. What he means there, I believe, is about the inevitable that happens to us, death, to deal with it in dignity and beauty. So his works were a little bit melancholic, a bit tragic, quite deep, and then you wonder why that is. Well, I think it's because of the life and times of the man. He was born in 1898, at the cusp of the 20th century, when in Andalusia, Spain, which is a beautiful province drenched with sunshine. He was born to a wealthy family, but in 1898, Spain was going through massive social change. The country lost 4 colonies in the same year: Puerto Rico, Cuba, Philippines, Guam, and the country was in a disarray. And life was hard. He saw that though he was well off, the people around him, the tenant peasants of the land that they worked, they were struggling. The gypsies, they were quite a rich culture in Andalusia, but people looked down upon them. And these sort of things seem to have irked him. And I believe he was within the society, but looking at the society from outside. And that has influenced his works. In one of his first great poems was the Gypsy Ballads. And that was something he said in the Gypsy Ballads. The message there was, the gypsies are the true expression of Andalusia, and they're the true aristocrats of it. And this quite annoyed the aristocrats of Andalusia because it's they looked down upon the gypsies. And then when he came to his final years, he did the 3 plays. They're called the Rural Trilogy. They're very interesting. And all of those 3 trilogy, the trilogy was, the themes that he came back to was rebelling against the Spanish bourgeoisie. He questioned the role of women in Spain. He raised the issues around homoeroticism and class struggle. So, my call to action today would be, next time you hear about García Lorca, do a little bit of research, and if one of his plays comes around, please go visit them. Especially the trilogy, which are Yerma, which is about a woman who wanted to have children but couldn't, and this unfolded in a tragedy where she actually killed her husband. Another one was The Blood Wedding, where it's a woman who has an extramarital affair which ends in tragedy. And House of Bernarda Alba, which is a woman who lost her husband and therefore had to put herself in mourning and her 3 daughters for 7 years, which was the culture at the time. So these are very, I believe these are classics, they are of that time, but also they're still valid to today because it is about our society and how society treats each other and the stresses that have caused it to people. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks a lot, Jayesh. We are ingratiated for the gift that you have given to us. Now, coming on, before I go ahead, there would be an evaluation slip next to each of the seats. Consider that as one of your Christmas cards to each participant who's giving a prepared speech. And can we have a minute on a clock to give that feedback to Jayesh, please? Perfect. So, coming on to the second gift that we are going to receive this evening, I would like to call upon Tanuj Saluja, who is going to evaluate Irina and stand up and give the points about the speech.
So Irina is attempting the speech number 2 from her pathways on persuasive learning, and the objectives of that pathway overall is to negotiate a positive outcome together with building strong interpersonal communication and public skills. Obviously, because this is her second speech in that pathway, she's factoring in the feedback she received in her icebreaker speech, and some of the feedback that she noted at that time were about her movement on the stage, her pauses and eye contact. I would like to see her bring those skills into practice and enhance them in this version of the speech. Thank you.
So, with the second speech entitled, "Do You Trust Your Instincts?" I would like to call upon Irina for the second speech, please.
Good evening. Today, I want to take you on a journey. And I want you to remember that age when you, for the first time, you thought what job you want to take when you grow up. Okay? And as you grow, how is this thing changes? Did you still want to do the same job, or did you want to do something else? And now, at that minute where you're sitting right now, are you happy with what you are doing? Is this something that you wanted all the time, or is something that just came up and you just took the opportunity? While you are thinking, I will take the opportunity to tell you about my story. So when I was, I think, age 6, for the first time I was thinking, what job do I want to have when I grow up? And as all the kids, what they do, they just copy what they see around. And what else could I copy? What else I could see? Because at that time, I was in primary school. So what I see was my teachers. So I said, I want to become a teacher. But then I grow up and I realize there's more than a teacher. There's lots of jobs that you can take. And I remember it was And by the time I graduated high school, I didn't know what to do. Because there were so many options in my head, but I didn't have a passion for any of those. So I was sitting and thinking, what do I love? What do I want to do? And I realized that I have a passion for the nature, for the environment, and I want to do something to change the world. And I found this course in environmental engineering, and I said, hey, I'm going to take that. I've told my parents, I said, I want to become an environmental engineer. And they looked at me and they said, what? Do you want to clean the rubbish from the streets? And I said, that's not what the engineer does. And they tried kind of to convince me that this is not the right path for me. And I said, okay, what else can I do? And my father was like, go to economics. That's all the money are. You have to study economics. So I didn't want to disappoint my family. So I said, okay, I'll go to economics. But everyone knew, or actually this is a fact known for my country, I don't know if it's the same for England, but if you didn't know where to go, you go to economics and you study economics because you don't have any other options. So I was okay, I'll be the other 1,000 people that study economics, and I realized that when you graduate there are thousands of people waiting for a job, the market are full, and you actually don't have a job. So, well, I still graduated, I did enjoy what I've studied, but I did realize that this is not for me, this is not what I want to do. And despite all these facts that my parents didn't want me to go to engineering, luckily for me, 4 years ago, I found an opportunity to become an engineer. And it was an engineering and construction. And I said, okay, it's not really what I want, kind of contradicts what I really want to do, but I said, why not? Let's give it a try. So I took the opportunity, and today, I'm an engineer. And I want to say, I think the message that I want to deliver from my speech is trust yourself, trust your inner voice, because no matter how far you'll try to fight it, to run from it, you're still going to come back to it. Because this is something that your voice tells you, you have to do it. And this is just my example, and luckily for me, I realized it before it was too late, let's say, because I'm still young. So I guess just trust your voice, and it's not just about what you want to do in life, what your job have, or it's about anything. Just trust your first instinct, trust your first voice. And yeah, I didn't want to do what my parents wanted me to do. And I didn't want to, break these rules that engineering are for males and females doesn't have any place for it. So I still wanted to go to that. So I did. And I encourage all of you, think about what your voice are inside you, what you want to do, and take that opportunity to do it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Irina, for that personal and passionate speech about gut instincts. Now, can we have a Christmas card for Irina or evaluation slip which we can fill for her? And can we have a minute on the clock for that? So moving on to the third prepared speech, or the third Christmas gift tonight, I would like to call upon Simon Vardama, who is going to evaluate David Horn to give the points of the speech. Simon.
David Horn's speech is from the New Pathways, and it's the Dynamic Leadership Project. It's actually the icebreaker, which should last between 4 to 6 minutes. And the purpose of the project is for the member to introduce themselves to the club and to learn the basic structure of a public speech, which I think will be more than adequately covered. Thank you.
So, with a speech entitled My Introduction to London, I call upon our President, David Horn.
It was June 1974, a couple of weeks before my 12th birthday. And with my family, I got on board an airplane in Vancouver and we flew over to London. Landed at Heathrow Airport. Now in 1974, the tube didn't run to Heathrow Airport. There was no Heathrow Express. So we did what every good British person would do. We queued up and we took a coach to Victoria Station. We were staying in a flat in Pimlico. And I remember waking up on our first morning in London and going for a walk with my dad. He said, I'm going to take you to Madame Tussauds. So we walked down to Pimlico Station. And that was my first exposure to the London Underground. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Trojans, welcome guests. Tonight I'm going to tell you the story of how the London Underground introduced me to London, the city that I'm now proud to call my home. So my dad and I walked to Pimlico Station. We walk into the station, up to the counter, and there's a man with tickets. And he hands out these thick cardboard tickets. Here you go, 2 tickets. And then you walk a little bit further, and then you hand the tickets to another man, and he clips them. And then we went down the stairs. There were no barriers. There were no Oyster cards. Just straight down into the tube. And I remember so clearly the musty smell, slightly smoky, slightly dirty. I remember the rush of wind as the train came towards the platform. And as it stopped at the platform on that day in 1974, I heard for the first time ever those fabulous 3 words, "Mind the gap." I was enthralled. So we got on board the train. The Victoria line took it 2 stops to Oxford Circus and changed to the Bakerloo line, where we took it 2 stops to Baker Street. We changed trains underground. That was so cool. I had never experienced anything like that. And we arrived in Baker Street, and I'm noticing signs that Baker Street was one of the first underground stations when the London Underground was first built, over 150 years ago. And I start reading the signs because I was fascinated. Now my dad says, "Come along, son, we've got tickets to Madame Tussauds." And in order to ingratiate myself with my dad, I said, okay, and we went, and we toured the Wax Museum, and it was interesting, but I wanted to get back to Baker Street. I wanted to learn more about this London Underground. So on our journey home, we came back to Baker Street, And I said to my dad, I really want to read these signs and really understand this. I'm fascinated by this. And he played along, and so we probably spent half an hour in the station learning about the history of the underground. And we picked up a tube map. Ladies and gentlemen, that changed my life forever. We went back to our flat, and that night, jet lag hit. I woke up in the middle of the night, wide awake. So I got up, took out my tube map, and started studying it. I must have fallen asleep at some point during the night, but I remember waking up in the morning, and there it was. And over the course of the day, I memorized the tube map. The fascinating thing is, I have for you here copies of the 1974 London Underground map, if you'd like to pass them around. Oops. Is it for me? Sorry. The fascinating thing is that today, 44 years on, not that much has changed. The Piccadilly line has extended westbound. It now goes all the way to Heathrow, serving all 5 terminals. There's the new Jubilee line, which was opened to honour the Queen's Silver Jubilee, but actually opened in 1979. Interestingly, though, much of the Jubilee line was already in existence. And from Baker Street northbound to Stanmore, it was just a separate branch of the Bakerloo line. It's only Southwark Station and the stations beyond London Bridge to Stratford that are actually new. There was an East London line that no longer exists. That was replaced by the Overground Railway. The Central line was shortened. There used to be 3 stations beyond Epping, all the way to Ongar. And the Bakerloo line was shortened because it used to go all the way to Watford and now ends at Harrow and Wealdstone. But come in closer, come into the centre of London, and there's even less change. 3 stations no longer exist. The Aldwych Station, Essex Road and Drayton Park on the Highgate branch of the Northern Line. And 2 stations have merged into one. Trafalgar Square and Strand are now part of Charing Cross. And I'm running out of time, ladies and gentlemen. The London Underground was my introduction to London, and I've loved it ever since.
So thanks to David, we know a little bit more about London Underground. Now can everyone write a Christmas card for David? And can we have a minute on the clock for that? So now is the time to know the time. So I would like to call upon the timekeeper for the day, Jane, to give us the time for each speech. Everyone, Jane.
Talk for 6 minutes, 20 seconds. And David, introducing us to London Underground, was 6 minutes 30.
before we go ahead and learn about the evaluations, there is within the evaluation slip, there is a voting slip for the best prepared speech. Can everyone please give their votes for the best speech tonight? So it's the second last slip from in the voting slip today. So proceeding with the evening's agenda for today, the first evaluator who would be evaluating Jayesh for his speech entitled The Poet, I would like to call upon Matthew Thomas Forrester.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. For the Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and most importantly, Jayesh. A thorough, well-done plethora of great poetry and enormous enthusiasm that you had for this poet. Now, I didn't quite catch the name to begin with, so I'm going to call him Garcias. Am I right?
García Lorca.
Garcia, okay. Well, I need to work on my Spanish. But Garcia, I'm going to call him Garfield. An excellent introduction to the life of this poet that Jayesh was able to give. I'm going to evaluate Jayesh in terms of the right words and sentence structure that he used to communicate these ideas. And I'm going to give him some words of improvement and a call to action. So starting with the prose. An excellent introduction that Jayesh gave was that when he came up on stage, he read a clear, simple message of a poem. Body thrown into a pit. He explained the great interest that this poet had. And we were all stuck there thinking, this is a really dramatic poem. And instantly, he took us into the depth of what it was he was going to talk about. Jayesh went into his life story, how he was inspired to write these many poems that he wrote, how he led to his death by using the words such as he wrote melodramatic, deep, sad poems. I like the rhetorical devices Jayesh used as well when he mentioned this by saying, now why did he die? A question that we all were spurred on to think about for this great poet who had lived and who created good works. He used great words to describe the imagery of the words that his poets had used. So for example, he had faded from today's modern society and was a bliss into the past. A great sentence structure Jason was able to use to draw vivid, clear images of this poet and what he was talking about. I would have liked, however, as an audience member, to have seen more structure maybe in Jayesh's speech. I felt this was key, as many of the words that Jayesh used to describe the poet were descriptive, but yet there were so many of them that it was hard to follow on to the emphasis of them. If Jayesh would structure his speech, maybe into examples of the poem like he did at the start, then the life story and the legacy of this man, it would be greater to the words that you use, therefore we'll be able to allow them to be implemented effectively into each area, allowing us to be able to comprehend what it is that you want to give us as an idea. I would also like you to use vocal variety maybe next time. So some of the words used, such as the melodramatic, the pit, fall into his sudden death. I think there's certain vocal variety tones that you can use to increase the emphasis of the words and ideas you're trying to convey to us, which is very important for how to say it. A call to action I'm going to give Jayesh. Next time, I think it's important that you don't rely on your notes as much. It was good that you were reading from them, but I think it kind of handicapped the effectiveness of the words you wanted to pull off. Maybe cut down on what it is you're reading off the notes and choose 1 or 2 or 3 main poetic ideas. And next time, allow yourself to just, on the spur of the moment, go into a descriptive analogy of how these words have an impact on you and the ideas you wish to spread to us. Apart from that, great speech, Jayesh, and we look forward once again to seeing you perform next time. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thanks, Matthew, for this evaluation gift. Coming on to the second evaluation, and it's Tanuj Saluja, who is evaluating Irina. I would like to call upon Tanuj on the stage, please.
Leonardo da Vinci said, "Learning is the only thing the mind never exhausts, never fears, and never regrets." Dear Trojans, Pathways gives us an amazing opportunity to improve upon a speech that we've already made. And today, Irina exemplified how to make the most of the feedback that you have received in the previous, on the previous occasion of that speech. As I said in my objectives brief, that she got feedback that she has to use the stage more, make more eye contacts, and probably use a better, seamless way of delivering the speech. I think she achieved all those objectives really, really well. The few things that I noted for that I really liked in her speech. Number one was she took us to the same ending of her speech. I was fortunate to witness the first occasion as well. She took us to the same path, but through a different route. Last time she used rhetorical devices, but this time she took us through her own experiences, and it was an amazing way to grip everyone's attention, make everyone realize the details about their own career, how it impacts them. And she wasted no time in grabbing the pulse of the audience to actually take them on that journey. She was really comfortable on the stage. I could literally see her almost doing a bit of a dance here. And that's great. I mean, it shows that if need be, she can actually stretch and move with purpose, which is one of the things that she had to improve in today's speech. She blended in really good humor. The scene about her family, it was a great chuckle that she got out of the audience. And she was scanning the room really well. I sat at the back purposely to note if she is doing that or not. And she did waver a bit, but she was scanning the room quite comfortably. It didn't feel like a forced effort that she was making. So I think she has actually improved on that particular skill of that feedback from last time. Overall, I think it was a very well packaged delivery from her side. It did not feel as if there was any component of the speech which was not blended in properly. It flowed really smoothly. And she, as I said, she made it relevant for everyone. So overall, it was a brilliant speech. What are the things she can improve upon? I think she can use more vocal variety in her speech. It was fairly monotone, but maybe it could be just the way she talks in her comfort zone. I think she can challenge herself by going high and low to bring in more emotions into the speech. And other than that, I felt that the introduction and the ending were really impactful, and she spent more time on the body of the speech, which she could have probably shrunk and made more, given more call to actions, except for the one call to action she left us with. But overall, if we think about the pathway she's on, she definitely persuade us to think about the career options we have chosen, and if we are not happy with it, move on to or gravitate towards the better one. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Tanuj, for that wonderful evaluation of Irina's speech. Coming on to the third evaluation. For the third evaluation, I would like to call upon Simon Vadgama to evaluate David Horn.
There was a difficulty. Evaluating the speaker as an icebreaker speech is actually quite difficult because I've got to bring it down to the 5 areas which are mentioned in the Pathways Manual. I will do my best. I'm going to make some recommendations at the end, but first of all I'm going to go through the main points of the areas that the speaker has to cover. Vocal variety, phenomenal clarity, and enunciation. I feel as though I could have sat there with my eyes closed and hear every single word pronounced beautifully. It's almost like listening to somebody on a radio form. The clarity is just as important as the words used and the message that you're trying to get across. Vocal variety, that's good. David's got a happy voice, and that also helps to bring you into what he's saying. He doesn't talk in a monotone, and he knows the right emphasis to place on certain words to bring out the full context and full meaning of what he's trying to say. He also helps this by using lots of open arm gestures. He's almost going to you and embracing you, bringing you in, saying, come to me, I've got something I want to tell you. But it's given in such a way that he feels like he's talking to you personally. You can almost forget there's 10, 12, 13 other people in this audience. You feel as though David is just speaking to me. He's communicating with me, even though you know he's speaking to everyone here. Eye contact, always very, very good. There are occasions where I think the amount of time he spends with each person is spot on. He doesn't do it so long that you feel as though you're being intimidated by him. He does it enough just to establish that contact and make the message more personal. Gestures. He's an expert at gestures. He knows how to use them. As I said, open arms. When he said that the tube map was cool, and he was really excited, you can see his staring face. Face red, eye staring. That shows you the contrast between him being cool and also being excited because he discovered something new. And again, that makes you think, I never realised the map could be so interesting. And it's amazing how something basic can suddenly be looked at in a totally different way just by seeing someone display that kind of emotion and those kind of gestures. Comfort levels. He's always comfortable with the audience. Do you know it? You see how he walks around. Doesn't feel nervous about the space. He uses that space to his advantage. And he knows how to use the time when he's walking across the stage also. Interest? Topical, because the tube is in the music moment. But also it's a walk down memory lane for those people who remember the tube in the 70s and 80s. I've forgotten the musty smell. I've forgotten you could smoke on the train. And for me, that brought memories flooding back, which I'd kept in the back of my mind. So that was very, very good. Any negatives? I think David had too much information that he couldn't get across in that 4 to 6 minute time interval. I think this would have benefited from being a much, much longer speech. There was so much meat in there. I think we were just being given the starting, and I would have appreciated having the extra time. I think also the use of the paper prop, the map, it was good, but I think momentarily you lost your flow. But I guess also with the underground, that map was a visual aid that was very important. Although obviously we can look at it in our phones these days. Thank you. my last point was is to negative. It's more a personal point of view. I just wish there'd been more people here to actually see a phenomenal speech disguised as an icebreaker. I've learnt a lot. I'm sure everyone here has learnt a lot. So.
Thanks a lot, Simon, for that insightful evaluation of David's speech. Now, I would like to ask everyone to give a vote of evaluation of all the three speakers. Actually, before we do that, can we have timekeeper over here to give the times for all the evaluations, please? Jane.
Matthew's evaluation ran for 3 minutes 15. Anuj was speaking for 3 minutes 50. And Simon was 4 minutes 57. Okay, thank you.
So now, can I ask everyone to give a vote for the evaluators?
Any more votes? Oh yeah, there's one.
Now there is a slight change in today's format. It's because most of you would be knowing that generally we do this voting in the second half when we do the table topics. However, today we are not doing the table topics bit as there are not many people. So for that reason, this is a slightly condensed format. However, it also gives us an opportunity to do a longer networking once we complete the first half. And now that we have done the timings and voting, I would like to call upon our Actually, I see some guests in our meeting. So can the guests stand up and give a 20-30 second introduction about who they are and why they are here?
We see you, Adrian.
What? I got something.
Can we see you?
Can you see me?
Yeah, you're here for one program.
So, if we can start with you, Adrian.
Well, I came this evening because I like bourbon biscuits. However, we've had to resort to chocolate digestives. So,
Mince pie.
Yes.
what?
Mince
pie.
Oh, mince pie. Actually, I take it all back. maybe I did make the right decision to come to that.
Well, then when you say take it all back, you're going to take all the mince pies back with you.
Yeah, they're all mine. They're all mine, definitely all mine. Yeah, go on, sorry. Shall be sensible to not a bit more time. It's good to go to other clubs. And I think the real value in Toastmasters is to go and visit as many clubs as you can. I told one person here tonight that a few weeks ago I was in Taiwan and I went to visit a Toastmasters club in Taiwan. Everyone there was Taiwanese, of course. They hardly ever see any visitors, especially not from Europe. So to go to the club, they were absolutely amazed. And I had a great evening, and it was the most bizarre, chaotic, ridiculous evening. But then I have Facebook friends, and we're sharing emails and Facebook posts between the clubs. So, maybe not Taiwan, but certainly in London, go and visit other clubs, go and meet other people, go and see different experiences. It's a great opportunity.
Hello everyone, my name is Julian. Yes, some of you may have seen me before. I've been here before once. This is my second time obviously. And I'm still thinking if I should join or not. I haven't decided yet. This is a difficult part for me because my English sounds pretty good, but it's not. So it's great. Still got to learn a bit more. And,
This is the place to learn.
and this makes it a real challenge for me to make a speech. So I'll see how it goes. In the meantime, I just want to join you and watch, learn more from all of you. Well, that's it.
Good, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Gloria. I'm here second time. I'm also still thinking to join, waiting to join, especially not thinking. I have decided to join.
Yes!
Even I have to improve myself because my English, is just okay, I believe, but I can't speak in front of the people, my main problem. I'm a planner. I have to present the program in front of about 30-40 people, sometimes once a week. But my weakness is I do everything, and as I go in front, I have to show the projector at the time I fail. And that's my weakness. That's why one of my colleagues encouraged me to join here. So I'm in the process of joining from my side. Definitely I'll join here, and hopefully you all guys will help me to build up my confidence to speaking in front of the people.
Sure, definitely.
I guess one of the point is like at some point of time we all at different times, at different levels, we all are a bit afraid of public speaking, and this is the club which helps us to achieve that thing. Apart from meeting good people, meeting and doing networking, this is the club which also helps us grow in all the other aspects as well. Now, coming on to the next agenda for the meeting today, I would like to call upon the grammarian tonight to give his thoughts on the usage of language. I would like to welcome Adrian Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and future members. Welcome guests. The word tonight was ingratiate. After three, repeat after me. 1, 2, 3.
Ingratiate.
You've now heard it 16 times. 13 a few minutes ago, but only 3 during the evening. David used it, Samit used it, and somebody else that I heard it, but I wasn't quite sure who it was. So, 3 times. Did you ingratiate yourself with me? Well, maybe could have been a little better. However, tonight there's a great example of how words can be used. And I love it when people use words that actually describe the feeling and also give the emotion. David used the word rush of wind. But he didn't say it like that. How did he say it? Rush of wind. He actually made the sound of the noise of the wind going through. So if we take a word and actually change it, he's used the word wide awake, but he said it, wide awake. And he made not only the word, but the expression and the emotion explain what he was talking about. And the most famous 3 words ever, used by a lady called Charlotte, I believe, who then recorded a message on social media, which was a little bit dodgy, and got banned from doing any more commentaries, I think, on the Underground. However, mind the gap was again said. Mind the gap, using it in the same way. So one recommendation for everybody is if you're going to use some words that are descriptive, use them in the context that really makes a difference. I love the words melancholic, tragic and deep, with the pauses in between. A classic of that time. Sit in a nice office. Did you picture that lawyer sat in that nice office? I did. A wonderful phrase tonight, passion for nature and then change the world. A few years ago, I wouldn't have thought of that, but now, actually, you can change the world. If you don't, nature will change it for us. Wonderful little play on words that Sumit used. Now is the time to know the time. Didn't we all snigger? I did. Descriptive but hard to follow. Carrying the room. That descriptive way of bringing everybody in. Listening to Radio 4. And a word that I've never been able to pronounce, but I'll have a go at it. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. I can never pronounce it. But somebody did tonight. They used it twice. The second time they used it, was describing the icebreaker at the end. A phenomenal use of an icebreaker. What a great way of finishing it off. As a recommendation for you guys, and a commendment, there was two things that I didn't hear apart from after I started on the stage. I heard it in the introduction, but I didn't hear it since. Nobody started their speech tonight with the word so. What a horrible way to start a speech. And apart from one without further ado at the beginning, Mr. Forrester, nobody else used it. There are those two things that I hate using. Those two crutch words, so and without further ado. Don't use them, guys. Mr. Esmonson.
So, we are coming to the end of the meeting.
You got that up, you should have been so without further ado.
You'll remember it though, won't you?
So, we are coming to the end of the meeting, and I would like to hand over for the awards to the president of the club, David Horn.
Two awards this evening, no table topics. The best evaluator, Matthew Thomas.
No, I got you for the next award.
Oh. And for the best speaker, calling on Sumit to present the award, David Horn. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings our permanent speakers evening to the earliest formal close since I've been in. But we've got some vino and some soft drinks and tea and coffee and mince pies and chocolates and biscuits. So please stick around and let's celebrate a little bit of Christmas cheer. And for those of you down in Cameraland, too bad you missed it.